Texas Chainsaw Massacre, the original film, came out in 1974. Before then, most horror films had like a European aesthetics to them. Think of like the Universal monster films. In the UK, they had the Hammer films. It's always about like vampires, werewolves, mummies, Frankenstein. Usually takes place in like a castle or like the countryside in like Eastern Europe. This movie, though, did something completely different for horror films, which was it took a young cast of nobodies who end up getting killed one by one by a crazy hillbilly wearing a leather mask, wielding a chainsaw with his family of cannibals, the Sawyers. It was filmed on 16 millimeter, and it was shot as if it was almost a documentary or kind of like a lost footage type film, as opposed to most conventional films at the time.
That shit did not start with Blair Witch Project. Like it did a bit more. Yeah.
I think around the 70s too, it's good to mention that there's just a lot of cultural anxieties going on. There was Vietnam War. Watergate had just wrapped up. Kind of like nowadays, I guess inflation was pretty high at the time. Gas prices were through the roof. A lot of people were there's a lot of economic uncertainty. But also around that time in the 70s, Ted Bundy was becoming a household name.
People quite a huge number of serial killers. Like that concept sort of didn't really enter into the American kind of public conscious until like the late 60s, 70s.
I don't think they caught him until it was like 1978 or something like that. But he first became known around like 74. But yeah, this movie, it didn't have much blood or guts. It was trying to avoid an X rating by toning stuff down. And so what it couldn't show, it made up for with creating this kind of almost like blurred fiction / reality type feel, focusing more on like psychological violence and torture throughout the entire film, which just terrified people at the time. And they a lot of theaters censored or banned the film. But this movie had a budget of about $60K. They don't know the exact number. They said between $60 and $140K. It ended up bringing in about $30 million. It also paved the way for slasher films of the 70s and 80s, and it created the slasher framework, which was a group of young victims killing them off one at a time by a masked killer. And in the end, there is a lone survivor, which is now known as the final girl. So it was a pretty epic film at the time that lots of other famous horror directors reference, having been a direct influence of their work, like John Carpenter or Rob Zombie.
Also important to then note, as Eric said, a very specifically personally American film. Like